Thank you so much, Gary. I'm going to run through the agenda today, and then I'm happy to take questions. We're going to hear from each of our task force leaders who will put forward their solutions for a more secure and prosperous America. This is following a number of listening sessions that we have been having since the beginning of the year, and every member of the Republican conference is going to have an opportunity to share their views, share their legislative ideas, and share what they're hearing from their constituents. We're kicking off the day with Congressman John Katko. He's the leader of the American Security Task Force, who's been very focused on cyber threats, the crime crisis in America, as well as making sure that we are supporting our law enforcement. We're then going to hear from Patrick McHenry, who's the Republican leader on financial services. His task force is jobs and the economy. Clearly top of the mind issue, particularly with inflation, the energy crisis, and the labor shortage across the country. We'll then hear from Ranking Member Mike McCall, our ranker on House Foreign Affairs Committee. He leads the China Accountability Task Force to talk about Republican proposals to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for their malign actions on the world stage. This is building on Mike's exceptional work with the China Task Force, which I was proud to be a member of in the last Congress. We're then going to hear from Kathy McMorris-Rodgers, the ranking Republican on energy and commerce. She's leading the task force on big tech censorship and data. Then Garrett Graves, our colleague from Louisiana, who leads the Energy, Climate, and Conservation Task Force, and Jim Jordan, the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, who leads the task force on the future of American freedoms, and lastly, Brett Guthrie and Vern Buchanan, who co-lead the Healthy Futures Task Force. For our lunch speaker, we are honored to host via Zoom former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. We are grateful that she is speaking to us today to share her insight and significant expertise in the face of the national security crisis we face today in the war on Ukraine. And then our keynote speaker for dinner this evening is Vivek Ramaswamy, who's the author of Woke Inc., a bestseller, and he not only has a tremendous background as a successful entrepreneur, he, I think, has really hit a chord in sharing with the American people his concerns of the dangers of the far-left woke movement and how to return to a culture of American excellence. And I will be back here today at 11 a.m. for the first ever House Republican Conference Hispanic press conference. It will be bilingual with our Spanish-speaking members, so I'm excited, and I'll see you again shortly. But with that, I'm happy to take questions. Yes?
Hi, you've spoken a lot about, thank you, you've spoken a lot about policies that Republicans want to implement. You've also spoken a lot about inflation and rising gas prices. I'm wondering if you can detail a couple proposals that Republicans are working on, actual legislation that can pass, things that can be done that can bring down inflation and lower gas prices.
Well, number one, we have to rein in the reckless trillions of dollars of spending. That stops with a Republican majority in Congress. You saw that in the previous Congress when we focused on, for example, COVID relief bills. Those bills passed nearly unanimously. That is not what we've seen under Speaker Pelosi's leadership in this term. The hallmark package that Democrats pushed through was the American Rescue Package. That was trillions and trillions of dollars on top of the already unspent billions of dollars of COVID funds. So reining in the spending is going to be really important, making sure that we have a path to balance in our budget and a workable appropriations process rather than having it written behind closed doors, multi-trillion-dollar bills run by the Speaker's office. In addition, on the American energy independence side, there are numerous legislative proposals that have been led by Steve Scalise, by Garrett Graves, by lots of members about how we can unleash all of the above energy independence. And also, there's an oversight role here, too, in terms of holding this administration accountable on their false promises and their attempt to pass the buck when it comes to the energy crisis. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Curious, Marjorie Taylor Greene echoed Madison Cawthorn and basically suggesting that Zelensky is a thug or that he's perpetuating propaganda. She holds some power in a section of the base. Is that damaging to Republican messaging that you want to be more hawkish in terms of the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Well, Putin is an authoritarian. He is committing genocide. He is a war criminal. The House Republican Conference has been consistent in this. We were very honored to have President Zelensky deliver his remarks to a bipartisan House, and it was quite historic. And you saw that in terms of where the House Republican Conference is with the votes we put up on the floor in support of the Ukraine lethal aid package in the defense appropriations bill. So we are unified in strengthening American national security through peace through strength, and that's where the House Republican Conference is. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm wondering if you think there's a connection between the American Rescue Plan Act and inflation, because that plan included a lot of tax breaks that, including the recovery rebates, child tax credits and whatnot that many Americans said they needed. So I'm wondering if you think there's a direct connection between passage of that bill and inflation.
I do think there is a direct direction, and the American people think there's a direct connection. When you spend trillions of dollars in the economy, you're seeing a significant and historic amount of inflation. That is hurting Americans more than any type of rebates that was included in that bill.
Larry Summers thinks there's a connection.
Yeah, Larry Summers, other, Democrat economists, liberal economists also believe there's a direct connection, which was why Larry Summers warned against this as Democrats were trying to pass that bill. Yes, in the back.
Good morning. I just wanted to ask, a lot of the policies that you're talking about this morning would, in order to pass, become law, would require working with President Biden. Is that something that the conference would be willing to do if you retake the majority? And do you think the entire conference will be willing to do that if you retake the majority?
Look, these are the issues that the American people are facing. It is up to President Joe Biden whether his administration is going to be willing to work on those issues. They, frankly, have ignored them. And I think we should call out the House Democrats. The fact that the House Democrat conference chair, my equivalent, Hakeem Jeffries, said that inflation didn't come up from a single member, that's how out of touch they are with the American people and the concerns that hardworking families have every single day who are struggling to balance their budget. They're struggling to fill up their gas tank in a district like mine where people have to travel. It's not rare to drive an hour to work and an hour home in rural America. So people are hurting, and we're going to send legislation. We're going to pass legislation out of the House and send as much as we can to President Joe Biden's desk, and we hope that he will work with us. But the American people understand that this is a result of his failed agenda. Yes.
So there's obviously a lot going right for Republicans right now, but what do you think is the biggest mistake that Republicans can make between now and November?
I think complacency. We are going to work to earn this majority. Majorities are not given, they are earned, which is why as conference chair, I have laser focused our messaging on the issues that actually impact people day to day. The issues that we hear from our constituents every time we go home to our districts, which every single day I'm in touch with constituents. And I cannot tell you the sticker shock they see when they go to the grocery store, or they go to the gas pump, or they pay their heating bill. For seniors like mine in my district, those are really tough financial decisions that they're having to make. So complacency, and I will tell you what, I always say I always outwork my opponents, and every opponent that I face knows that in my district, and we're going to work hard to earn this majority, which is why you're seeing a substantive discussion today with every member involved on behalf of their district to develop this agenda. Thanks very much. I'll see you at 11.